Hi, Carla from Cycle CPA here, landscaping accountant. And I wanted to make a video about the different service lines landscapers are in. So, if you have a landscaping business or a green industry business, it is likely that you perform, a various amount of services. And it's important to break those services down. And a lot of companies do this. So, not only in terms of revenue and knowing what service lines bring in which revenues, but also breaking it down by cost of goods sold and also overhead by service line. So, what I mean by service lines is, for example, you may offer design and build and also maintenance services. When you offer multiple services, to a certain when you get to a certain point in revenue, and this is not if you're just starting out, but if you've been in business for a few years and have a few employees or are an established business, it comes to a point where you want to know how much revenue you're generating from design build versus maintenance, for example. How much field labor are you paying for each, materials for each, and overhead for each? Because if you know these items, then you can pinpoint if one service line is more profitable for you than the other. Of course, we all want to render services that are the most profitable for companies. And sometimes that does happen. I have seen where companies completely dissolve a service line because they broke out their profit and loss by division, and they clearly saw that in one of the service lines they weren't being as efficient in the others, and so they were losing money and leaving money on the table and not taking advantage of what they were good at. And so knowing which service line you're most profitable in, and then also knowing where your problem areas lie. Is it in the maintenance division? Is it in the design build division? So that way you can also improve in that. And then also, this can give you an advantage in the market, because if you know that your overhead for one division is less than another, then you can price your services according to that and price your services more accurately, and being able to pinpoint those costs. And so today I want to show you guys how to go about setting up a profit and loss by division, or by classes as it's called on QuickBooks. What are the implications of that, and also how that would look like. Okay, so I'll show you how to set this up on QuickBooks Online. I'm in a sample company right now, and on QuickBooks Online, this feature to track the different expenses and revenues per division, it's called class tracking on QuickBooks. And so every accounting system should have this, but it just may be called something different, like divisions or classes or departments. But you'll click the gear icon here, go to Account and Settings, Advanced, and you're going to click the edit icon here under categories, and you're going to turn on class tracking. Warn me when a transaction isn't assigned to a class. Yes, I like to do that, and hit save. And so what that means is that you can track those items now. So if you're using the bank feeds on QuickBooks, let's just say that you have this expense for a rental. Oh, here it is. Yeah, so you would put in your vendor, the category type, rentals, however you like to categorize that, and then the class that you want this to go into. So if you determine that this was for an expense for your maintenance department, then you would type in maintenance and so on. You don't want to create too many divisions for your business because I think that getting a better picture, yes, but also I have seen companies that have like 20 divisions, and that's just inefficient. And so you want to keep at least, 3 to 5, depending on your needs. You don't want to overdo it because then it kind of defeats the purpose of setting the divisions up on QuickBooks. So you'll put in the class for every transaction that you incur. And also, if you use the general ledger, you'll also have a class setting there too if you don't use bank feeds. So one thing that I want you all to note is that maybe you're thinking, okay, how will I gather the information so I can allocate materials, labor, revenue, overhead accurately to each class? So I like to think about it in 3 sections, just very simple. Materials, labor, and overhead, just those 3. Think about those 3 items first and how you can go about that. So first is materials. Materials, how can you track that? You can assign a credit card to each employee, and maybe depending on what the employee does, if you connect that credit card to QuickBooks, then all expenses through that credit card could be assigned to maintenance, if that employee just works in maintenance. Or and this could get kind of tricky if you have employees who are cross-trained and kind of work in 2 or 3 different divisions. So in that scenario, I don't recommend that method, but I do recommend receipt tracking. Maybe having the field laborers on every receipt track the division in which that expense belongs to, and then collecting receipts at the end of the day and making sure that each receipt has a division on it. Also, a new product came out. It's called Divvy Credit Card. And so with that, you can have your employees categorize the transactions and go about it that way as well. So there's different methods for tracking materials. Now, next, labor. So labor's a little more complex. So the way that we track labor per division for our clients is that usually our clients' employees are clocking in and out of jobs on some sort of third-party app or even the QuickBooks app. And so when they're clocking in and out of jobs, we take the hours associated to those jobs that therefore are associated to a division, and then we enter that as a journal entry on QuickBooks. And so that takes care of labor. And then, or if you do have employees that work for specific divisions, which we see that here too, then we just map their pay to that division in the payroll journal entry that occurs through QuickBooks, coming from their payroll provider. So that's even easier. So I would recommend tracking time if your employees are cross-trained, but if they are not cross-trained, then it becomes a simpler method. And then the third item, overhead, which is easier. So the first item I like to think about when I'm thinking about overhead is the biggest overhead. One of the biggest overhead expenses are overhead salaries. So usually overhead salaries are the biggest expenses in this industry, and if you get that split out per division, then you've taken care of a big chunk of your overhead expenses in general. So if you have a sales manager that works for maintenance and you have a different sales manager that works for design build, then you can, allocate those different people's salaries to each division. But again, you can have a sales manager that does both. So the way to go about that is talking with that sales manager and asking, what percentage of their time do they feel that they're spending on maintenance sales versus design build sales. If they say something like 50-50, then you can split out their salaries 50-50. And then, of course, the business owner's salary, same thing. And so once you get, like I said, once you get those overhead salaries split out, it becomes pretty easy. And then all of the rest of the miscellaneous items that you can split out, try to do that. But that's the biggest one that I would focus in on. All of the other little items like telephone and utilities, I wouldn't be so concerned about those because those are small amounts. I would just focus on overhead salaries. Equipment rentals are easy because you know what equipment you're using for which division. And once you get the overhead salary split out, and then any of the other little small items split out between the divisions, then everything that is left over, you can split it out as a percentage of revenue between both divisions, and then you'll have your profit and loss by division. So you can go to reports. Profit and loss by class. And you'll be able to see your profit and loss by division here. All right, next I want to go over here what a profit and loss by division looks like and why it's important to keep track of this. So here we have a profit and loss for Arbor Services for the second quarter in 2021 and versus Hardscape. So here we can see that the cost of goods sold or direct costs for Arbor at 61% versus Hardscape, it's at 67%. So clearly we can see that Hardscape requires more direct cost than Arbor. Gross profit in Arbor, therefore, is going to be better. And so that's at 39% versus Hardscape at 33%. So right now we can see that the Arbor division within this company is more profitable than the Hardscape division. Once you have your overhead items split out, then you can see here that the total expenses for the Arbor division is at 28% of overhead expenses, and then the Hardscape division at 38%. So clearly you can see Hardscape has higher overhead costs, and therefore we're losing money in the Hardscape division, and we have a net loss of 6%. Meanwhile, in the Arbor division, we have a net income of 11%. So now, again, this company can choose to rectify whatever is going on or whatever is the cause in the Hardscape division here. It looks like there's something going on over here within the direct costs and get to a more profitable position. But over time, if they keep running a net loss, they may decide to eliminate the Hardscape division overall and just continue with their more profitable service And like I said, sometimes this happens. Sometimes I've seen also the opposite effect, that once you get a clear picture, then you can rectify those issues. So one more thing here, when you are rendering your budget for the upcoming year, it is important to also render your budget and splitting that out by division. And so here we can see that we have two budgets for overhead expenses, in particular indirect expenses for design, build, and maintenance here. And I just wanted to show you this budget because you can see that design build, their total overhead expenses are at 27%, but maintenance is at 25%. And this company calculated their overhead rate per hour. And so for design build, it's 24 and maintenance is 15. And therefore they can price their services accordingly, and it gives them a competitive advantage because they do have this granular view of their financials. And so if any of you have any questions on how to go about creating a profit and loss by division, let us know. We can even do this for you and send you financials on a monthly basis, profit and loss division. And yeah, so feel free to email me at carlap@cyclecpa.com. It was nice talking with you all. Bye.